this is Eric at Learn Design with Eric, and this week we're going to have a look at the pen tool. The pen tool is a tool that many people are a little bit scared of, and rightly so. It's extremely powerful when used correctly and can be difficult to master without a little patience and a lot of practice. I started using the pen tool on the computer design, back in the early 1990s in Aldus Freehand. Aldus was then bought up by Macromedia in the late 90s and then eventually was consumed by Adobe, who purchased the competing product, which at the time had powerful tools like Flash and Fireworks. If you remember that far back, that was like well over 10 years ago. And I used to hate Adobe Illustrator, to be honest, because I was a freehand guy, but I got a job at a place that had used Illustrator, and so I was forced to learn it. And the pen tool was slightly different than with freehand than it was with Illustrator back then, but of course over the years I've grown to love Illustrator, and I wouldn't even think of going back even if the product was available now. So today we're going to look at the pen tool on Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign, and I'm going to show you some of the ways that the pen tool can be used in all three of these apps so you can have an appreciation for how to use it, when to use it, and a little bit of how-to in the beginning in Illustrator. So we'll start in Illustrator, which is a great way to learn. That's actually how I learned to use it. And we're going to have a fun on the PC again, or Mac if you have a Mac.
When you're doing a simplistic path like this, first of all, just to do this for yourself, go ahead and go into the shape tool and draw several shapes with star, polygon, ellipse, just draw several shapes on a blank page, and then on a one layer, and then lock it down, and then add another layer, and that's where you're going to do your pen tool work. So you're going to grab the pen tool, which is you either click on the pen itself up here in the toolbar, or you can hit the P button. In either case, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. And then when you're going to use the pen tool to just draw a simplistic path like this with no curves, you literally just click down, and then you click on the next point, and the next point, and so on, until you get back to your original anchor point where you started. And when you get back there, the path will finish. Now, because the pen tool is designed to be used kind of in any way you want, you can stop right there. Like, you don't have to finish the path. It'll still, as long as there's 2 points, a path will exist. So that's the simplistic, thing about the pen tool. So we're going to go ahead and do the second path of this hex. And again, I'm just clicking on these center points on these angles, and I'm just going to go all the way around. Now, notice something here. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so you can see this. So if I select this anchor point, and I'm going to select it by holding Control, you'll see how my cursor changes to that open arrow. So I'm going to click on that. And then right here, just to the right of that, and hopefully you can see, maybe I'll zoom in a little bit more, maybe it'll be more obvious. I guess it's not any bigger. In any case, there's a little dot just inside of that anchor point, and when I hover over it with my little cursor, it gives me a half circle. So I'm going to zoom out a bit so you can see what's going to happen there. But see how that rounds that corner? It's also rounding all the other corners. Let me back out. Yeah, that's what I got to do. So that's a cool way to make like a tool shape or something. Anyway, just a little tip for you there. So now for the circle. Now the circles are a little bit different. When you make the circle with the actual application, see how it makes it with 4 individual points? And see how those points have these little anchor doohickeys hanging out, these handles? So I'm going to go around and show you how those all look. They're all equidistant and similar because obviously this is a perfect circle. And so when you are going to redraw this circle, you're going to have to do virtually the same thing that it's done if you want it to look right. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here, and now if you hold shift, it'll constrain your angle. See that? It's only going to allow me to make a circle or make an anchor point at a 45 degree or a 90 degree angle. It will not let me do any old angle I want. See that? So that's not holding shift, and this is holding shift. So I'm going to hold shift so that I can constrain that angle. And then I'm going to hold shift again up here. And so on as I go around. And I did not do a very good job of picking my center point there. See that? It's messing with me. And then when you finish the path, I'm going to hold Alt. And by the way, if you're on the Mac, I'm going to go ahead and put all the quick keys in the video, because I'm not going to try to tell you what both quick keys are while I'm doing this, because it'll mess me up. So anyway, when you're finishing the path, I'm going to go ahead and hold Alt, and then hold Shift again, and then drag up, and that'll let me finish that path. So now we're going to do the same thing with this. Of course, it's different because it's an oval, so we've got a little bit longer path, and then shorter, of course, and then longer, shorter. Again, holding Shift to constrain that angle, and then when I get back here, holding Alt and Shift, and I'm pulling it away. So there's our oval, and now for the freeform path. And now this is a bit of a guess and check, because it, you know, there's no real like right way to do something like this. So this is where, as you're learning how to use the pen tool, you're going to be kind of guessing about what the right choice is, really, as far as doing these. So just do the best you can. And the objective is to get it to be as similar as possible as the original without, you know, cheating, basically, which is, you know, unlocking the other layer and seeing exactly what the computer did when you drew it with the freeform pencil tool and putting the points exactly where they were and all that. So we're just going to go around here, and this is really the best way to learn the pen tool. As you move your cursor on these handles, and one of the coolest things about the pen tool is, unlike with a regular pen, like let's just say with a regular pen I drew a path this shape. Okay, well, I mean, obviously it would have been a lot quicker, like I would have used, you know, pencil or something. So like a pencil tool, you know, something like that. So unlike with a regular pen, if I had drawn a path like that on a piece of paper and I wanted to change that, like I didn't like this hard angle here, or I didn't like this weird little hook at the end, well, I guess it's time to wad up the paper and get another sheet of paper. But the cool thing with the pen tool is you're like, oh, I don't like that path. Well, I can straighten it out, or I can just remove it. You know, I can remove that one piece, or I can remove just this one segment. And then I can redraw it. Maybe I want it to go in. And then I can select these and join them. Link. Two different paths. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do with the pen tool, and it's pretty fun to play with. So anyway, play around with that. If you've got a version of Illustrator or any one of the vector drawing tools that you can find, is to create that second layer and play around with it. So the next thing I'm going to show you is, this is in InDesign. So I've got this document that I created kind of for this particular project, and you know, 2-page spread. And my thought was, well, it would be a little bit better to, instead of having this square bounding box around this marmot bag, to actually have the type wrap around this bag and just make the bag a little bit more part of the page instead of just kind of sitting there like pasted on. And so my thought was I should put a clipping path around this. Sorry, I zoomed way too far in there. And so I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to go ahead and knock out a quick clipping path here. And this is again where you're going to kind of make some good guesses about the shape that you might want. And I'm going a little further out than I maybe would if I was trying to like clip this out, obviously in Photoshop, but trying to keep in mind that there's going to be type that I'm going to wrap around, and I can't see now, so I got to remove that fill. And let's see. Try to keep kind of a hard edge on that end. And then I'm going to remove the whole fill so that there is no fill at all. And I'm going to grab all of this stuff. So the two text areas and the clipping mask. And now I've got a nice mask around all the type, so it kind of floats around that bag and it kind of sits unified in the page there instead of being all now. So this is a bit of an issue, obviously, so I'm going to have to adjust my type there. So I'd probably have to tighten some stuff up, bring this up. This isn't real type, by the way, obviously. It's Greeking text, so there will be real type. I'd have to watch out for that. So there's just some things like that that you'll have to watch out for when you're doing a real page layout. But that gives you an idea of something you could do to kind of make your two-page spread job look a little bit better. A path that's been drawn with a pen tool using InDesign to go around an object on a page. So that's another thing you can do. And the last thing I was going to show you was in Photoshop. So we already kind of touched on this real briefly last week when I showed you some different things in Photoshop with the the select subject tool. So just to show you what happens when I select subject on this particular image, which I pulled off of Unsplash. That's right, Unsplash. So select subject. Well, let's just try it and see what happens. And if I remember right, yeah, see, it doesn't like it because these tones are real similar to the background. So it doesn't really like it. And you could try to finagle it with the selection brush, and you might, if you worked hard, be able to get it close. But then you got all these negative areas to worry about. You got this stuff, and right here there's almost no difference. I mean, it's real close in color. And then you've got the smoothness to worry about, and the fact that it probably didn't go around. Yeah, it didn't go around this well. So there's just some things where those types of selections don't really work all that well. And so the best thing is a path. So I have created a clipping path already. I didn't want to take the time to do it while I was on video with you guys. But I'm just going to zoom in close so you can see how that thing looks. Click on it. There you go. So you can see all the little handles. So you can see kind of what I did. So just to select a single handle, you can see I've got these handles hanging out here. There's your point. There's another one with the handles. So I took some time, not a crazy amount of time, but a little bit of time, and I went through this, and you can kind of see how these handles are applying and creating this circular shape here. And then, of course, on these are corner anchors because these are just straight shots. And then over here, of course, I've got the handles because this is a curve again. So that is how a clipping path is done in Photoshop, and why was to create a clipping mask. So I'm going to make a second layer here, because you never destructively modify stuff. So this will be clipping. And then again, we're going to go back to our select and mask. And when it's a clipping path made with a pen tool, it's a perfectly smooth path, like as smooth gets. So you never need to do smoothing, but you're still going to want to feather it a bit, because if you don't, it's going to look like somebody used a pair of kitchen shears to cut it out, and it doesn't look good. So I'm going to feather it at 1.3 pixels. I'm going to bring the edge in just a bit, because whenever you feather, you're creating kind of a blurry edge. So you want to bring it in a little bit, because you don't want to have like the background showing on your object that you're clipping out. I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to use the mask tool here to mask it out. So now you can see on this little black here, that's your clipping mask, and our clipped out product. So then we can, again, like we did last week, we can put it on a background. So this is a kind of a cool background because it's actually from a guy playing in the band, which would make perfect sense for this image because this is actually a Shure SM7B microphone. And as expected, it's a tiny little image. That's disappointing. So I'm going to do something you should never do, which is to zoom up an image like this to massive mega size. Maybe this is just completely the wrong image. I was thinking it was a good image. Maybe I'll just use that part. Bring it back. Because it's a bokeh background, it's probably not going to matter that much that it's a little bit blurry, because it's already blurry. And we're going to use curves. And curves is a little bit like levels in that if you drag this end in, it's going to darken the whole shoot and match because it's actually darkening up the tone. And if you drag this end in, it's gonna lighten up the end. See that? But what I like about curves is you can create a point, and then you can create other points, and you can darken kind of individual areas and kind of adjust the tone. So see, I'm getting a lot of like digital noise right there. You may not be able to see, but I am. And I'm gonna back it off just a bit so that I don't get so much of that digital noise. And I may bring this back in just to darken it up, just to give myself a little bit of pop there. So there you have it. There is your clipping mask with the SM7B and a bit of a background. And you know, all done because of the pen tool and a path. Thanks to paths and pen tools. So that is your little mini lesson for this week. And I just wanted to thank you for watching. This is Eric at Learn Design with Eric.